our food supply has been taken over by multi-billion-dollar corporations, some of them not U.S. companies. Here we are in the United States where a lot of our food is not dictated by U.S. companies. It's dictated by companies that are from elsewhere.
And these people have lobbyists that pay Congress, and this isn't a one-sided issue of what side of the aisle you're on.
Yeah.
They pay both.
Not only, sort of infiltrate the government, but they also infiltrate organizations like the American Health Organization or the American Diabetes Association, where they're pretty much pawns for the food companies. If you're making, billions upon billions of pounds of corn, and all of a sudden people aren't wanting to use corn anymore. We've got to use this because it's what we make. So let's put it in cars and call it
Subsidize it.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 strength and health authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
Hi, and welcome to the Strong by Design podcast. I'm your host today, Tanya Fines, joined by two very special people because they are actually now friends of mine that I met, a couple months. It's been a bit. So this wonderful couple, Noel and Kevin Key from Cocoa Beach, who have a lot of things going on. But I brought them on the show today because I want to talk about their latest book called The Cow is How. And all I'm going to say is go buy it. We're not going to be able to get to all the things that I really want to dive into today, but I do have a couple questions. I don't want to, no spoiler alerts here because I want you to buy the book. I want you to read it. This is actually a resource you need in your home. Everybody needs it. Buy it for birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, everything, okay? You need this book. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hi, Tanya. Thank you. So glad to be on your show.
Yeah, nice to see you guys. When did I see you last? Hasn't been that long. 2 weekends ago?
Super Bowl.
Super Bowl, yeah. Yes, we got to spend Super Bowl together, which was a really great time at Cosmic Tiki. Another plug, if you're in Cocoa Beach and you want a great place to hang out with your kids, Cosmic Tiki, go. Just promise
We
you.
just got our beer and wine license, so now we're officially a bar-ish.
Woo!
Family-friendly bar.
Yeah,
Awesome. Okay,
lots
great.
of family fun where the adults and parents and grandparents can relax right on the
Yeah.
beach.
It's a great space. I mean, it has everything for every age. It is so much fun. And right next to the beach. So you spend the afternoon at the beach. You want to get the kids showered off, but everybody kind of wants a place to kind of just sort of have some fun and chill. You got to go to Cosmic Tiki. It's right there.
That's right.
So check that out. Okay, so back to the book. But first of all, Noel, can you tell us a little bit about, you have quite an impressive background. So better.
Thank you. I have a little bit of a crazy, weird background. And so I spent my entire life and career as an engineer. So very much a scientist and engineer nerd, as my husband will say. And it's just from the age of 14, I've been working on robots and high tech and computer programming, et cetera. And I started building businesses when I was very young. So right after I graduated with my undergrad, and while I was doing my grad degree, I started my first business, grew that up, ended up selling it to a large chemical company that later became Dow Chemical. And then I also grew up another business right afterward. I just am a glutton for punishment. So very much an entrepreneur, and not only an engineer, but an entrepreneur. So grew up another business, and this business was doing defense contracting. So a lot of work for large defense contractors, doing antennas for space work and satellites, and then grew that company up from very small beginnings and very humble beginnings, and sold it to Cubic Corporation in 2019. By the time I sold my second business, I said, I would like to live somewhere on the water and raise my kids, who were in high school age at the time, and be with my husband, who is a water sports aficionado, among other things, which he will tell you. But we picked Cocoa Beach to go and live. And one of the reasons why we picked it was so that I could invest in companies and be part of the whole engineer, space-oriented stuff there. We're big space culture here in Cocoa Beach. So I ended up doing that, and of course, working together and partnering with my amazing husband, who will share his background. Started falling in love with the sort of the intersection of food, farming, and cows, and so
And family.
and family. That's right.
Love that.
Yes.
Wow. So yeah, like I said, not at all impressive.
Thank
It's like, wow. I need a nap after hearing all of that. Seriously. But no, just to meet Noel, for our listeners, just to meet Noel, it's just amazing the amount of energy. First of all, one of the most intelligent people I've ever met, but her energy is like seriously off the chart. Part of, I think, the accolades for you is that, really somebody with that kind of spirit energy you have could do this as well as you have, because that's a lot. That's a lot. And it's not just being busy and moving. It's like being busy with intention and getting shit done.
Yeah.
And doing it really well. So massive respect for all of
Thank you,
that.
Tanya.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Kevin, let's hear about your unimpressive background. This is a real power couple, folks, like huge power couple. So
Mine's a little different. Mine's a lot more haphazard throughout a lot of it. I'll just start with my passions. I grew up, my passions really were skiing and cattle ranching, and I had several others as well, but those were two of the big ones. And throughout my high school years, I would spend time working on the summers at our family's cattle ranch, which my grandfather started when he returned from World War II. And it is not located where I grew up. I grew up in Reno, Nevada, and near the Tahoe foothills, and where the ranch is in northeastern Nevada. And my grandfather had a vision that if you really want a cattle ranch to succeed, you need to have another income source that can keep that thing going. So he started the first veterinary hospital in Reno, and then he started a law practice, and then he became a banker, and then he became a real estate investor, and he instilled that in my father and I, and he went on. So, but I always cared about the cattle ranch and really wanted to be part of it. But I was tinkering with school at the time, and that wasn't making money, and it wasn't really working. So I took my passion for skiing, and I became a professional skier, and I did that for several years, but that only worked during half the year. So then I also became a heavy equipment operator and a child counselor. And as I like kids and I like working with kids, and I did those things, and eventually realized that those weren't leading to any real future in ranching. So I had to figure out how to finish college and get a degree, which I did. And then I joined the Army a little bit along the way. First enlisted in the National Guard, and then went active duty, and then served my career as an airborne ranger, and then a Green Beret, and did a quarter century of service and loved it. And towards the tail end, met this beautiful lady, and we really had a lot of synergy together. And we both like to think a lot. We both have master's degrees and like to compare notes. But I am not a scientist and not an engineer. I like the human domain a lot better, and it became very collaborative and inviting, and we started a few companies together. We were real estate focused, and eventually, after I got out and now had some jobs and some retirement, I have now gone back into ranching, where I'm taking over our family's ranch and becoming in charge of that and learning. I'm just still very wet behind the ears, but that's okay, and I love doing it. And I think that's where we are right now.
wow, again, you guys have nothing going on, and all of it. So, and also very, very, very active people in your community. That's my visits to Cocoa Beach, and those, you're very much immersed in the community. You know everybody knows you, they like you. So you're really great pillars of the community. And I'm all about community. So I love that. When I see people doing that, I'm like, these are my people. These are my people. So I love
We
that.
love each other. We love people, and we love you.
Yeah, love you guys too. So the book, again, folks, is a resource. You really need this book, and not just read it, like take it in. So couple questions. I want, the title of the book is The Cow is How to Fix Food, Farming, and Pharma.
Mm-hmm.
So for some people that might, see this online or look at it and be like, the cow. So why is the cow the solution? I mean, the book title suggests that cows hold the key to fixing food, farming, and pharma.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the biggest misconception people have about cows and their role in our ecosystem?
Well, that's a very good question, and very broad. But so I'll I'm pretty good at describing that, but I'd like Noel to I'd like to hear her perspective, because part of the value of dating a city girl and then marrying her growing up around cattle my whole life is seeing things as what I thought is normal and almost intuitive in dealing with cows and cattle and everything. And it was a big deal for me that, hey, this ranching lifestyle is a part of me and it's going to always be a part of me. And I love you and I want you to be a part of me. So several years ago, going back almost a decade, I was like, I need to take you out to the ranch and I need to see if you like it. Because if you don't like it, there's going to be a lot of friction points. And as she goes out there, she starts to ask questions that I just didn't think need to be asked, really. And they weren't bad questions, but she didn't have the perspective of growing up around cattle. But what she did have was a scientific mindset. And she started asking really neat questions. And it really changed my perspective about, wow, a lot of people really just don't necessarily know about cows or how things work. And there's a lot of ignorance in our society and culture there about where our food comes from across the board. But in cattle in particularly, and she has, and her insight, not having insight, was so valuable for me to kind of take it back and look at the message is about cattle. And I'll let you kind of talk to that, because I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. I think that maybe to answer your question, you almost have to peel back each one of those sections, which is food, farming, and pharma. So I won't do it particularly in that order, because what Kevin said is I really started with the farming, right? So I had no concept of how cattle were raised. I didn't have the hurdle that most people have in terms of the misconceptions about red meat being good for you. I mean, that is the misconception that red meat is not good for you. And we'll dive into that in a second, or maybe a minute. But the farming aspect of it and the way that cattle are raised is true, and the what people tend to look at, and Kevin talked about this yesterday. We were speaking with another gentleman about how people have this misconception that the way cattle are raised is what they see when they see a feedlot or a concentrated feed operation, right? And they think that that's the way cattle are raised. Well, 80 to 90% of a cow's life, in fact, is on grass, on pasture. In Kevin's family's ranch case, they're in the mountains of Nevada, of northeastern Nevada, where you're not going to see this cow or calf for a long time, and they're miles upon miles away up in the mountains looking for food. And they're not hurting the environment. They're actually pooping on things and fertilizing the ground and mashing it into the ground with their hooves and thus fertilizing it, and not really putting a strain on any resources that is any greater than what we once had in our country with nearly 100 million bison and elk and deer. So,
Much more ruminants then than there are now.
right.
Oh, right.
Producing the same
Absolutely.
type of gases and whatever they say are wrong, but also doing the essential ecology of building the soil and and building grass and of allowing carbon to be sequestered out of the atmosphere, because we need that if we are not naturally fertilizing the soil or artificially, but you must do it, and the ruminant animals do it naturally.
Yes. So I think that's the biggest misconception, is that cattle are primarily raised on our grasslands, and they create thriving grassland environments with a lot of biodiversity. So that is sort of an overall farming. That's the great misconception about cattle.
Can we talk through the stages?
Yeah. So we can dive into the misconceptions about food and pharma, but we can keep on extending out, because there might be a little bit of more information to kind of talk about farming. So,
I can just real briefly talk through cattle operations in the United States.
right.
They generally run. We are a cow calf operation, so we breed cattle in the spring. Breed cattle, starting in spring, and they also give birth around that same time. Their gestation period is very similar to that of a human, and then So and you can breed them fairly much right away or right before they actually give birth, and they can get pregnant again, and it's great. Anyway, you move on to so we're a cow-calf operation. We sell a weaned calf at the when they're normally about 9 months old or so.
Right.
And then they go to what's called a stocker operation, where the stocker operation now keeps them for about another year. And they're on primarily pasture, and they're being left alone. They barely see humans, and humans barely see them. They're just getting bigger, becoming adult cows and or steers. And then they go to a feedlot, which is I'm not necessarily a fan of modern feedlots, but that's what normally happens. They're all controlled by 4 main entities that control 85% of the beef supply. 2 of those entities are foreign, and that's not necessarily a good thing or something I like, but it causes problems in the logistical infrastructure, and it adds price to the consumer as it goes along these large corporate paths. However, they're in the feedlot there for about 2 years, and they go to a packing plant and they turn into hamburger steaks or whatever. 2 months.
Yeah.
And then they go to a packing plant. And then so those are the big main 4 steps in a cow's life, which is somewhat convoluted because we are shipping heavy animals and lots of meat around the country to do this, which is not necessarily a logistical easy thing, and comes with a price tag and a cost, and also is polluting with fuel and other things into the environment, where I am prevented as a cattle raiser to sell you a hamburger. It has to go through these processes.
Wow. So yeah, food is definitely a business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
It's big business. Like when I live from Canada, some from Canada come from a ranching background, and it really kind of woke me up. I mean, not that when you're in it and you're doing it, you're aware of what's actually happening at that level. You have like the front row seat that people that are just going up to the grocery store and buying their food don't get. But when Cargill came in and started buying up like all the grocery stores and coming to the houses to try to buy the land, I'm like, wow, this is big. Like this is big,
I
and
wanted to
the
be cool.
impact is like, whoa,
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah. So there's lots more to answer your question on some of
Yeah.
those other fronts, but at least we started at the farming. And then one thing to contrast, most of the agriculture that's done in the Great Plains, which are the biggest agricultural centers in our country right now, are for monocrop agriculture. And that's another misconception, that people think of growing plants and plant-based food is really great, but and I believe that it's very not good for your body, but for the earth it's terrible because
Corn, soy, and wheat,
Yeah.
and that
Yes.
on an area that was naturally sugar used on the plains, but but that's an area that was primarily designed by nature for ruminants,
Right.
and
Yes.
now there's almost none.
Yes. And the limit of biodiversity that is there now is tragic, and the lack of water, we're draining all of our aquifers to feed all of these
Genetically engineered
yeah.
with billions with a B pound of insecticide and herbicide that are put on them, killing the rest of the ecosystem around them, killing the insects. We're down over 50% of insects
Right.
that were extinct that were there just 50 years ago. It's at an alarming rate, but no one wants to really worry about the lack of insects.
No one. I mean, as long as you go to the store and there's food and you come home and cook it, put it on your
Mhm.
plate, everything's fine, right?
But what are the
but
other problems that's creating?
Right. Where's it coming from? And I can't remember. I read a stat to prepare for this, and I cannot remember numbers very well in my head. But it was the statistic in terms of just a general, like, random soil sample throughout continental U.S. The lack of microbes and stuff in the soil. It was just shocking. So now, like, they're coming up with, well, okay, let's plant peas because peas are going to put nitrogen in the soil. Like, it's
Right.
just like, wow. Like, we kind of mess with it so much that we've offset the balance to a point where now we're humanly trying to intervene to recreate the balance, that maybe if we just went back to regenerative farming,
Right.
the earth knows how to do that.
Right. With animals, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
So
So, how do you think, in your opinion, because it's an opinion. Now, you guys, your opinion's more valuable because you've done a lot of research on this book. I know that.
Mhm.
But how do you think that as a society, as a culture, how do we become so disconnected from natural regenerative farming? Because I'm not willing to accept that human population is the end-all be-all answer to that. I'm like, no, it's not just because of the amount of bodies on the earth, although that has an impact. You put more people, like there's only so much space and land. The more people fill it up, the less room there is for animals. But I don't think it is the root cause, and I don't think it's the only cause.
Mm-hmm. Well, when you look at, you mentioned Cargill, right? And the food companies. I think we can pick on them a little bit.
I like to.
But I would pick on, more like the General Mills, the Kellogg's, and the Nestle's, where, our food supply has been taken over by multi-billion-dollar corporations, some of them not U.S. companies. Here we are in the United States, where a lot of our food is not dictated by U.S. companies. It's dictated by companies that are from elsewhere.
And these people have lobbyists that pay Congress, and this isn't a one-sided issue of what side of the aisle you're on.
Yeah.
They pay both.
And they take over
very extensively.
Yeah, they take over things. They not only sort of infiltrate the government, but they also infiltrate organizations like the American Health Organization or the American Diabetes Association, where they're pretty much pawns for the food companies. And so the food companies truly have, when you have something that is for corn, for instance, if you're making billions upon billions of pounds of corn, and all of a sudden people aren't wanting to use corn anymore. We've got to use this because it's what we make. So let's put it in cars and call it
Subsidize it.
As well, subsidize it.
All these,
when instead maybe you're going to be making it, right?
Right.
So I think it went hand in hand with some misguided ideas about
for good reason,
what is healthy for people. And so that kind of gets in the pharma aspect of it. But I think that a lot of these companies like Kellogg's, General Mills, et cetera, latched onto breakfast cereals, Snackwells, cookies, bars, and all the processed and high carbohydrate foods. I mean, look at Coke and Pepsi. They've made an absolute killing off of sugar, and there really is no nutritive value to anything that any of those companies make.
No, but the marketing's brilliant.
The marketing is amazing.
It plays into the psyche because it's feeding on human emotion, not human logic, because 80% of everything's done emotional. And you can, if your 20% logic is strong enough, you can sort of kick it into to start like going, okay, wait a sec, but no, it's 80% emotional, and the marketing's brilliant because they know how to market to Coke and Pepsi can market to every age group. Like you could be on your deathbed and Coke make an ad to sell you that last sip.
And have you ever seen an egg commercial just like a Coke? I mean, they don't have flashy, glittery, bright red, whereas the nutritive value of an egg or a slice of beef is, a million times better than a can of Coke. So, I think that really the food companies have kind of taken over, and the marketing has been so sophisticated and so smart that it just is this very nasty, vicious cycle where people fall in and become addicted to it. I mean, corn syrup and sugar are highly addictive. In some cases proven to be more addictive than cocaine for children. So why are we allowing ourselves to be sucked into that? Well, it's because our brains are made for the 2 weeks that fruits are ripe in the year, to go and gobble up as much as that as we can so we can fatten ourselves up. Well, unfortunately, when that's available to us year round, that's not a good situation. And people just latch onto it, right? So I think that's why that's why cows have been kicked to the curb. Really.
Well, they're an easy scapegoat, like we're never going to see a cow defending itself, right? Right. So blame the cow, but they can blame. I mean, the cow has become a scapegoat on multiple levels, like of everything from environment to industry to like all of it. I mean, they can trace it. I mean, like let's say follow the bouncing ball, takes you right back to the cow in a lot of in a lot of rooms where people are talking about this stuff, but not talking logically because they're so laser focused in on one thing that they've completely forgotten the entire big picture and how we got here, like how we got here. So now with that being said, I want to jump tracks a little bit. I want to talk about what the catalyst kind of was for writing this book, because Noel, your story kind of stems from a health thing. It stems from health. And can you talk a little bit about that? Because this is real. I really want to get people like, okay, we've talked about that part of it, but like, let's get to the nitty gritty of meat, carnivore, beef, red meat, especially. All right.
I think that really goes into the pharma thing and what the solution is predominantly for most of our country when things go wrong with whether it's in pediatrics or geriatrics and everywhere in between. And I think Noel's family stories are really valuable in that regard.
Yeah, well, as Kevin is saying, my father, the catalyst really of this was my father, who is actually visiting with us right now. And he was a very active guy for, his 70 years when this crisis hit our family. He was playing tennis 4 or 5 days a week. He was just crushing it. He was overweight. He had been
A little bit.
Yeah, but
Normal by modern terms.
not extreme or anything like that. But and he had a serious carbohydrate crush. He was really into sugars and starches and had been his entire life, being raised semi-Mennonite. So anyhow, he was playing tennis one day and somebody found him collapsed on the tennis court. And when he went to the hospital, they found that he was he was very lucky that somebody found him, because he would have died from a diabetic coma, because he had a raging case of type 2 diabetes and had no idea. And then created this cascade of this pharma, onslaught for him over the past many years now.
Suitcase of pills he was.
Yeah. So insulin he had to be on, and then high blood pressure medications, as well as obviously his cholesterol was high, so they stuck him on a bunch of statins too, which later on he felt I was pretty angry at him about taking those, because I'm very much against them.
Let me just stop you real quick.
Yeah.
So one of the things, engineer, loves her father, loves her family, sees a problem, immediately starts attacking it. And how do I fix this? And really, that's kind of one of the things that led us down the keto carnivore path, because we were both healthy. I ate French fries plenty, and was not really keto or carnivore. I'd heard about it, thought it was really interesting, thought it was really neat, but I was also healthy and not really solving a problem. But engineer starts attacking this problem, and we start reading more and more and more and more and more. And so just looking for optimal health, I went there, but I'll let you kind of go through that. Talk about how you were trying to fix.
So, insulin resistance is it is an epidemic in our society. And the very simple answer to solving the insulin resistance problem is to adhere to a low carbohydrate diet, either keto or carnivore. We like carnivore because there are a lot of fatty acid profiles and a lot of vitamins and minerals that are available really only in animal organs and meats.
Right.
And in particular, red meat and fatty red meat at that, which is something that's just been demonized in our culture. So I kind of went down a rabbit hole of doing all this research for my dad to, kind of get the drumbeat in him. And look, you don't need to be taking all this insulin. You don't need to be taking all this high blood pressure medicine. All you have to do is adhere to this diet. And he did. And he started getting better. The only problem is that this diet, and I believe also the addition of statins over so many years, he's been eating this way for 70 years, right? Also had affected his brain.
He did cure his diabetes.
He did cure his diabetes. His diabetes is under control, but his brain had been affected and so he was also diagnosed just this past year with Parkinson's. He's probably had it for a while, but he finally went to bite the bullet and talk to a doctor.
Right.
So Parkinson's is caused by the dopamine receptors and the dopamine functioning in your brain not working properly. And a lot of your neurotransmitters are dictated by, they get affected by too much sugar in your system, too much insulin resistance, and also lack of cholesterol, which your brain really needs. Which statins do. Which statins take away
Statins,
from.
yeah.
So anyhow, really the book was okay, here's another thing I have to chase and another thing I have to chase. But it all came back to everybody chasing around to try to solve this problem or that problem or this problem or that problem with a drug, something you pay for, right?
Right.
Rather than just going back to the cow. Let's go back to the cow. How can we solve everything with just starting with the cow and seeing if we need to add anything else? Well, the answer is there are many people that are out there when you start reading about keto and carnivore, is some people, all they eat is beef. And that's it. Salt and water.
And they're very, very healthy. In fact,
Super
world record athletic holders. I can think
Yeah.
of I can think of one. And there's also, what was that, the cycling team that like they're all carnivore keto and they're all champions. So
Yeah.
it's growing and becoming effective.
It's pretty amazing. It's
Yeah.
pretty, and it is a growing thing.
No. Yeah.
Mhm.
So anyhow, so that was the catalyst. And, we're still working with my dad. But again, and that's why Kevin and I really have kind of gotten a little bit more careful about our diet, because when you eat improperly for so many years, it's really difficult to undo that damage. So you can help. Like my dad, I think his Parkinson's is better. I think his diabetes is absolutely managed, and he was able to come off of almost all of his medications.
Right.
But there are some things that you can really hurt yourself with.
But it does, since we switched, I was healthy before I went primarily carnivore, and I'm not super strict. I will, if I want to have a beer with a friend, I'll have a beer with a friend. Yes, I don't know if all our listeners know, but
No
about
judgment.
5% of everything I put in my body is generally animal based,
Right.
but I don't mind. It's not a religion. I don't mind having a French fry from time to time. And the more I've gone into primarily carnivore keto based, the more I've found improvements. My body now recovers without any significant supplements, as well as it did when I was in my early 30s.
Right.
My gray hair went away. I still have some, and it's particularly in the beard, but I was looking for that. My skin got better. I don't get sunburned anymore. It's like just like all these strange improvements that I'm like, whoa, that's really neat.
Right. Well, I think you touch on something there that I want to sort of reiterate for our listeners. When you said, you're not like super strict, but 80% of what you put in your body is animal based. And that once, you like to have a French fry. I think people need to hear that. I think sometimes people think, oh, it's too much, it's too strict. I had Dr. Paul Saladino on here.
Yes.
It's been about 2 years, I think. I interviewed him right after he came out with his book. And it was a great show. And but I think for someone like that is maybe someone in their family struggling with health issues, or maybe they've heard about this carnivore thing, and they've jumped around and tried all the diets and stuff. I think for a lot of people, they can't get off the X. They're just like, they just envision eating nothing but like bowls of ground beef or plates of steak, and that's it. And that's really not what it is.
No.
You
So it
know?
is for some people, and God bless them. But I like to have sushi with white rice on occasion. And I don't. What is interesting though that I found, is I've been doing this for 4 years now, is I mostly only want beef or meat now, or some cheese. I will do what I want to do. If I want to have some sort of I don't know, French fries, I'll eat the French fries. I don't have some big problem like, oh my God, I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole or go down this horrible pit of dismay and be super sick again, because I wasn't sick to begin with, so I wasn't fixing that problem.
Yeah. Well, I can remember when I was in university, I went to it was a Catholic university. I'm not Catholic, but they had a really great program that I wanted to do, and it allowed me to get 2 degrees done in 4 years. So I'm like, I'm doing this because I want to get it done and get out.
Now
And
Yeah.
so they had, but probably 90% of the student population were Catholic. Now this was East Coast of Canada, the Maritimes, which is still there's a lot of like religious division. Like there are still families that if you're Catholic and you're Protestant, kids don't get to play together and stuff like that. Not as much, but it does exist. So I'm at this Catholic university. I'm not Catholic. And a lot of my friends, Lent's coming up, and they were all diehard. Like everybody gave up something for Lent, And they were all whining about like, oh, I'm going to give up beer, or I'm going to give up this or that. And I thought, it's 40 days. You can do anything for 40 days. So just to kind of prove a point, I'm like, well, I'm gonna give up red meat for 40 days because I love my red meat. You know? Oh gosh. By day 10, I was just like, I was a total bitch. Like I was just, I mean, I stuck out the 40 days because I'm not going to lose a bet. So I stuck out the 40 days, but I did not feel good. I was doing a physical education program. I was playing rugby. I was doing track. I was doing all these physical things. And I tanked. Like I completely tanked, and I tanked very, very quickly. My hair got really brittle and dry, and sand started to fall out. My skin got, same thing, was like reptilian. It was a huge, like I noticed it very quickly. And then after the 40 days, it took me about a month to be able to kind of get back into it. Like I couldn't just sit down and eat, 6 ounces of beef.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I have a theory, and I have no idea how true it is or not, or what amount of truth there is to it. But the theory I'm about to give, I think that our good mutual friend Johnny would also, it may be an example of this. Is, you know, I'm a combat veteran of multiple deployments. I've spent probably over 3 years of my life in combat, and a lot of folks have a lot of issues that are in that scenario. And there's a lot of things you could say for why people that do or don't have issues. And I've been in a lot of violent situations. I have a Purple Heart. I've been wounded, and I don't have a lot of mental problems that I see other people having. I just don't. And our good mutual friend Johnny doesn't have them either. And of course, we all got problems. Got to work through things. But I don't. And one of the theories I have is I wasn't carnivore or keto by any means, but I always ate a lot of meat. Always, always, always. And I used to have a funny thing I would say when growing up, all the way back to my teenage years. Well, if everyone ate a lot of beef, I'd be a rich man. And so I used to always just like to promote the beef industry. And so I wonder, you know, as we talk about the types of minerals and benefit that red meat has, I wonder if there's if there's something there that, you know, I was given through my nutritional medication without even knowing it. And dealing with these high stress life and death situations, that I was able to come through it a lot cleaner than others. And was it the beef? I don't know. So it's a theory. It's a hypothesis. I don't know if that's true.
It's worth it's something definitely worth like exploring the topic, right?
Yeah. And I won't give it away, but you know, in terms of spoiler alert, but we do talk about the nutrition profile of beef and animal products, and how there were several, when you did your 40-day, you know, fast from meat, you really were very deficient in bioavailable vitamin B, vitamin A, lots of other
things not good for the mind.
Lots of
I was completely stupid. Like,
yeah, you'd have fog, you know. And the other thing too is if you're eating a lot of carbohydrates, you get the sugar spikes that you tend to get throughout the day.
Yeah, I don't need coffee all day. I've needed coffee all day my entire life. And I do not need coffee all day.
Wow.
Anymore. I just don't need it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, that was really difficult. I did not like how I felt. I actually ended up, I got anemic during that. And now though, I have to watch. I should be getting labs more regularly, but I can tell when I can tell when I'm like, oh, I'm dipping, and I just, you know, I'll just sit down and eat a piece of steak, eat a small steak. And I usually tend to feel better, but I manage it with my nutrition. But that 40 days, I was like, wow, that really, even to this day, I still, I've got to keep that up because I tend to be on that anemic side. And that's when it really flagged for me. Wow. It's like, well, I'm doing this again. I'll give up beer like everybody else.
Give up something else. Yeah.
Right. So what were some of the biggest challenges you had in writing this book? Now I know research is like, that's tasking, and then you gotta check all of that. I mean, all of that has to be on point before you publish anything. But like, what were some of the other challenges in researching and putting this book together?
Well, researching for me was never, that's actually what I've liked. I will stay up all night or even wake up in the middle of the night getting all excited about researching.
A lot of it was not being able to research, though, because there were so many opportunities. Hey, what about this? What about that? And I would be going out to do some ranch event, and you know, we were spread thin, and they're like, I'd really like you to see this, and I think it'll really help the book, but we just can't do everything at once. And
it was hard.
That was probably
Well, and just in general, just writing a book. I mean, I think it was a labor of love. It was inspired by my dad and also some of our other family members too, and also it was inspired by love that I have for Kevin and his family and wanting to tell that story and help him tell that story too. I think just the mechanics of writing a book in general and getting it out there to me was the biggest struggle, right? So just not having done that before. Of
Right.
course, I'm kind of a glutton for punishment, starting businesses and selling them and stuff like that. So it's like, all right, I can do that too. But it's
So you were a big help.
yeah. And
You're
Tanya, I know that you're a celebrated author. You're amazing, and you were very helpful in
So
guiding me and giving me some, you
Mm.
can do this
well, it
encouragement.
turned out amazing. Like, I mean,
Thank
it turned out mine's all marked up of highlighting stuff and
Yay.
all of that. But like, no, like I said, it's a resource. Like, this is not just pick it up and read it. Oh, that's good information. This is great information. This is, this is credible. I mean, this is
Yeah.
all of the sites and the like.
Yeah, there are
It's,
about 200 citations, so
I know, right? Like,
yeah. There's a
no,
lot.
it is great. This is something that needs to be like in your kitchen or in your living room, that you're like picking it up every day and just going, okay, what was that I read? And because this is for people that, I think, in my opinion, people that are really, really serious. Like when we talk about wellness and the whole
Yeah.
scope of wellness as a holistic
Yep.
thing, this becomes a tool. This
Mhm.
becomes a tool in how to get there. Now, not just how to get there, but understand the why. I think everybody kind of needs that why. Like, so why am I doing this? I want to feel better. Okay, let's keep reverse engineering that why. And when you get to kind of that, what I call like your ground zero why of what that is built on, what are the tools to help get you there? And they're right here.
No.
They're right here. So
Yeah.
you guys did all the hard work. And I'm saying, get this book, get it in the house, and start learning. Treat this as like a course on life and how to live optimally. That's really
Mhm.
what it is.
I think that's so great, Tony. I appreciate that so much because it is kind of hard, even when we were writing it and doing the research, and I have all the information readily available at my tongue to spout off. Most people's advice, I've been trying to eat healthy, and my yoga instructor said this one new brand of yogurt and the probiotics, and then I'm like, okay, if that's where you're going with your health advice and that's where you want to have this discussion, that you're not serious, and you may think you are, but there's so much more to a holistic health in mind and body than I'm going to try this new yogurt, or hey, I got a new Super Beets
The quick
milkshake to do
fix.
every morning, or whatever this latest pill and purple box from GNC is going to solve my problems. You need to understand how it all works together. And I do think that if someone wants to go this route, you do not have to be all in, and I'm just eating ground beef and that's it, and maybe an egg on Tuesday. It's no, you start do 40% of your diet, do 50, just start increasing it. You're going to get these rewards over time.
Yeah.
Right. And I think for a lot of, like, again, we're human beings. We're kind of simplistically predictable. We're creatures of habit. We get into patterns. And a lot of times, even if the pattern isn't really good or serving us, it's easier than changing the pattern, because better the devil you know than the devil you don't. And anything that takes a little work can be really off-putting to a lot of people. But what I'm going to say, and I say it in most of my shows, is like, if you're sick and tired of feeling sick and tired, then do something about it. And
Yeah.
it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen. If you've been eating a certain way for even 20 years, let alone 50 years or something, that switch is going to take some time. But typically what I see is when people start to feel better, and it usually doesn't take that long. If you're actually consistent and honest, and you pick something small, like you're going to do these 3 things for the next 2 weeks. And when you've kind of got those 3 things under your belt and they're not that hard, that might be just drinks. I always tell people, pick something simple. Have water before you have your coffee, something that is manageable that you can do. And after a couple weeks of success with that, then you start tacking on. You kind of start building that up. And it's really, what I always love is when you see people that they're starting to make these small changes, they're starting to feel better. What they see reflected back in the mirror to them looks better. And that is usually the greatest motivation, inspiration to keep going,
Right.
but it's just getting in those first 21 days, then the 60 days, just start doing the small things that you can do. this idea of, well, I'm going to come home and throw out all the fruits and vegetables and I'm going to fill the fridge with meat and that's what I'm going to do. You are just setting yourself up to fail.
Right.
100%.
I still eat berries. I like them. And
Yeah.
and they are a part of human history. But, it started with I would go through a thing of blueberries, organic blueberries every like 2 or 3 days. Now I buy the small little package. I grab a little handful before I go to the gym because it gives me a small energy burst. And I normally throw them away after a week and a half. I don't finish them. And I'm eating as much as I want. I just don't want them as much anymore. I still want them here and there.
He does eat a lot of beef, though.
I eat a lot of beef.
Well, when you get those, like when your insulin levels, when things are balanced or are they're in harmony. I like the word harmony. It just gets this nice picture of the body being all happy inside. But when you have that kind of harmony, like the body, to me, the body is the most amazing machine that we'll ever know. And we'll never really fully know it, but it knows what to do if we know what to do for it.
Exactly.
Like it actually knows what to do with the stuff. We don't really have to be on this search for the next best thing or the next best supplement. Put the real good, clean things in and the body knows what to do with it.
Exactly.
I've been
Don't
eliminating
extract it overnight.
I've been eliminating some supplements significantly. I don't think I need them, and turns out I don't, and I barely have any anymore.
Yeah. So if there was, because we covered, there's so much more we could talk about. So we're going to have to do this again in a few months. But if there was, I encourage listeners, you to go back and listen to this with somebody that is going to get it, that needs to hear it, that will appreciate it. But what is one, from each of you, what's one takeaway that you would want people listening today to remember specifically about our talk today?
You start.
Okay, that you can get the Cow is How on Amazon. Just type it in, and it's right. It's there. But know that we are selling a book. But the ideas we're selling, we're not selling ideas. Come with an open mind. If you're a vegetarian or vegan and you think that that's the way, but you want to know kind of where some of the science is on the other side of the coin, read it. Read it with an open mind, and that's how we arrived here. I wasn't leaning this way to like replace all of the monocrops throughout the plains with cattle. And in fact, when that idea first came up, I thought that's ridiculous. But then I started thinking, well, maybe hypothetically that might really actually be better for everybody if we did it. So the idea is out there, the idea is floating, and so I'd say just come with an open mind.
Yeah.
And,
So I would go, I think, back to something you mentioned earlier about feeding the population and, that kind of inspiring a weird, maybe a negative way that we have been producing food for our growing population. I like to flip that on its head and say, look, if we know that the way we've been doing it with corn, soy, wheat, and sugar.
And billions of pounds of insecticide and herbicide that who knows what long-term effects they have on.
And if we know that those are very destructive to our environment and to people, okay, billions of pounds of glyphosate ain't good for us either. It really is for our food. So if we know that that's the case, if we go ahead and take the leap and say, all right, Noel, what if you're right? Then I think kind of the next, like before I die, I'd like to write the book where we actually kind of go down the rabbit hole of like what Kevin was saying. What if you start replacing a lot of the things that we're doing wrong with the environment, farming, pharma, et cetera, and food with more animal products? How can we make that scalable without ending up with what we look at in the feedlots as being not such a great thing? In the last chapter of the book, we talk about how, there's some technologies and advancements that are not the same as putting a bunch of chemicals into things, and instead looking at things like hydroponically growing food for cattle instead of people. And how could that be sustainable for our water supply and our food supply? And how could you then scale a lot of animals and without hurting the environment and without taking up too much land? So that's one of the things that you mentioned. We thought we had to feed all these people. We had to take so much land. So I think there's a lot of questions that we can answer as we innovate along these paths. How can we improve nutrition profiles? Like, I'd love to see a prescribed cow Like, I'd love to see us with a certain kind of fatty acid nutrition profile based on what you fed the cow or the animal. So wouldn't that be very interesting? Or an egg or a salmon or whatever, but you feed it good food so that it does well for you. And so I think that technology, those innovations are going to be coming over the next 10 to 20 years. And I'm very excited to be part of that. And I'm also part of an investment group called Azulterra, where we're trying to advance those kinds of technologies, leveraging things like animal products in order to make the world
The environment, preserve the land and the environment.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like, I'm looking at the glass half full, rosy colored glasses, like, okay, if I'm right, then what do we do to scale? And what do we do to feed all these people who want to be healthy? What happens when the rest of the population is 80% of the population is no longer obese and heart disease ridden and diabetes ridden? What are they going to do? What are they going to spend their money on?
I was going to say, a lot of people are going to be broke, not our people, but like people that are making a lot of money off of sickness and illness, right?
Yeah, but those are very few. It's the rest of us who have to pay the price for what Coke and Pepsi and Eli Lilly are doing to us. So, so that is, I think those are interesting questions, and it's kind of like a follow-up that I'd love to do before I die.
Definitely. Well, it's definitely within the year for sure.
You didn't beat and you got a lot of years.
I know. Maybe I'll live forever. Who knows?
Man, this might just have to be like a biannual thing,
Yeah.
Well, you guys, thank you so much. I know you were so busy, and this wasn't necessarily the easiest thing to navigate because you guys are all over the place, and you got so many things so many really great things that you're doing, and I really, really, really appreciate you for what you.
We appreciate
you too.
A book. And just for being able to take time out of your super busy schedule and just sit with me and talk. Because this is really, like I said, this is a resource. I really want to get the word out there. Buy the book, people. The Cow is How. Go to Amazon. The Cow is How.
The Cow is How.
The Cow is How. You can't not remember that. So get the book. And please, don't forget to give us a 5-star rating. And please share the podcast with everybody. Get everybody to listen to. We got to get back to the cow, folks. Getting back to the cow. I'm your host, Tanya Fines. Thank you again, Kevin and Noel. Talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.